So it's a genuine pleasure for me to be following Jackie and Valerio on this panel. And I too would like to thank the organizers for including me in the conference. I've been to several of these conferences over the past 23 years. Actually, my first one was when Lloyd Axworthy was presenting his green paper. And but this is a unique conference for me because I've always enjoyed them because of the mixture between academics and policymakers and stakeholders. But this year's experience is a bit unique because I can legitimately call many of the people in the room, or some of the people in the room, at least from ESDC, colleagues. So some of you know I've just come off of a year as an economist in residence with working in Deputy Livonian's office. So part of my presentation is going to wear my hat as an aspiring public servant, sitting around the deputy's table with others, putting forward specific proposals to propose for the budget. So I'm going to be very distinct and take the subtitle of this conference quite literally. What to do? 3 policy proposals. At the same time, as you can imagine, as an academic, I just don't want a seat at the table or a voice at the table. Academics often want to be the only voice at the table. That's why I often find myself sitting alone. But that said, with my academic hat on, and I should say to Deputy Livonian's credit, she never let me sit alone. With my academic hat on, I want to take a little bit of liberty with the title of the conference, and so my presentation is the changing nature of pay. And this, I think, speaks a little bit to, I believe, was Adriana's question in the last session. Work to an economist has 2 elements. There's a quantity and there's a price. So we've been talking a lot about the amount of work, the nature of work, the content of work, the skill content, and not so much about the wage rate and pay. So I want to take seriously the kind of challenge that Adriana posed to us in the last session and that Gabriela Ramos of the OECD spoke of in her opening address last night. I think as we move policy forward, an important litmus test is what happens to the bottom 40%. And so it's in that framing that I put my 3 policy proposals and asked you to think about pay as well as the nature of work. To begin, I want to bring your attention to this lovely book. I have a copy here. You should get a copy too. I was recommending it to Janet, but I think she's already read it. By 3 University of Toronto business professors. And they've written this book called Prediction Machines for Business Leaders. And it talks about the risks and benefits of adopting artificial intelligence in the workplace. And they've used some simple economics in that. And I think, as Janet said, the public service is also an employer. And if you're interested in how this might affect your workplace, the kinds of decisions as a leader you have to make as to when and if to adopt artificial intelligence, you'll want to read this book. And it goes on for 18 chapters on strategy and tactics for business leaders. And you get to the last chapter, which is about 10 or 15, less than 10 or 15 pages of a 225-page book, which is called Beyond Business, and appropriately called Society. So in this chapter, they are asking questions that we are inherently interested in. Is this the end of jobs? Will a few huge companies control everything? Will some countries have an advantage? And they even ask, is this the end of the world as we know it? But I want to pause on one of the questions that they pose and answer in a page and a half. Will inequality get worse? Okay. So the use of machine learning in the workplace, I think we should just see as another wave of technical change that's been going on for some decades. I think the answer to that question, and the authors so I sort of get it right, yes, inequality will probably get worse. Okay? We live in an era in which prediction is going to become much better and cheaper. Okay? I sort of find it ironic that we're living in an era where prediction is going to be better, and we are so uncertain about social policy and what to do about it. But if that happens, what they're saying is the cost of prediction is going to go down. All right? So that has three implications in this simple economics model. All right? If you used to do prediction, you're competing against the machine that can do a better job. Your wages will fall. Everyone will have a job, but what kind of job will you have? Second, they bring in basic economics 101. If you complement the machine, all right, your wages are probably going to go up. All right? And what the machine can't do is it doesn't exercise judgment. Data is very important for the machine, so if you find yourself in a situation of small data, or a situation of, well, the data is no longer relevant, the unknown unknowns, okay? Or, in every decision making, we need to have a sense of the kinds of trade-offs towards an objective we are reaching. And that requires judgment. And so, people who exercise judgment will see their wages go. So, for example, if your job is to evaluate, let's say, pick up the discussion I had recently, visas to Canada. You know, hundreds of thousands of visas, all right? And we've got a big staff doing that. Machines can probably do 90% of that job for you. And then you just need your most skilled people with the most experience, the most judgment, to deal with the conflicting 5 or 10%. Okay? The other thing that will happen, of course, is this has output effects. So it will also change the prices of goods, and then that may change things on the demand side, and you may see a scale effect, and employment might go up. The bottom line here is inequality is probably going to get worse as a result of the introduction of technology. So my proposals are meant to address 3 issues around that. And I'm going to focus on the 3 needs that citizens have. We all need capital, and from that capital, that is a source of generating income. And finally, we need insurance for our income. So how can governments promote capital amongst the bottom 40%, give them income support, and give them insurance? All right? So there's been a lot of talk about silos and breaking down silos. And I actually, with my years' experience sitting around the Deputy Minister's office, really valued how siloed the place was. These people running these programs have an immense amount of knowledge about how these programs work. And it's shameful that academics don't have more of that knowledge. Often we will make policy proposals, as I have done, and I'll be told, well, we already do that. But the subtleties of the programs, there's a great deal of knowledge there, and I want to capitalize a little bit on that. But I want to break through those silos, or give you an example of how I might sort of break through silos to speak to a new issue. So I think it's important for policy to move forward by recognizing legacy and incrementally developing. But how can you change? I think you can change an existing program in 2 ways. One, take the same program but give it a different objective. And that's what I would do. And 2, take the same program and think about the clientele. Give it a different clientele. Or worry about take-up rates. And with that, I think you can incrementally build up from existing programs to meet your needs. So you can innovate in sort of a risk-averse way. And perhaps at the risk of my reputation, I will try to do that with 3 existing programs. First, let's talk about building capital. So I have Thomas Piketty's book in my mind, R greater than G. If you don't have capital, forget it, okay? The question is, what kind of capital, financial or human? So all this talk about economists ruling the world in this conference, and I think this is the first marginal benefit that's been put up, so I can't resist giving you this graph. All right. So part of what we're doing, I think, is defaulting to skills. All right. Just think about it. More and more skills. All right. But in this AI world, it's judgment that's going to be really important. And we just saw in Harvey's presentation the challenge of doing that. That's going to come with a lot of experience. So I don't care how much you skill people up, or if you get them through community college, or you have pathways to get them to become a nurse practitioner, they're still going to have a rough time in the labor market. And what's going to happen, as David Weed has alerted us, as we get more and more educated, some of this is going to be pushing, people are going to be moving down the skill distribution as well. So it's not like we're going to be able to take everybody and give them one of these high-powered jobs. Okay? So the optimal amount of investment in human capital is going to be determined when the return to human capital equals the return to financial investments. At some point, we want to give people financial capital, because for them, the return will be greater. Okay? Not everybody should get a PhD, in spite of all of our learning, early learning agenda, trying to shift the marginal benefit curve out. There's going to be a great deal of heterogeneity in returns, and we should be aware of that. So the government does a lot to subsidize the accumulation of financial capital in our society. Okay? We have tax incentives for retirement savings. You can use also that to buy a house as well. There are tax-free savings accounts in Canada, and I think in the US that's the equivalent of the Roth. So we are subsidizing the accumulation of financial capital amongst certain parts of the population. I would suggest probably certainly up to 60%, if not more. Not the bottom 40%. How can we incentivize the savings and the capital accumulation of the bottom? So right now, we do make significant investments in post-secondary education. So that is also subsidized through registered education savings plans. And these basically involve, for those of you who aren't familiar, a lifetime amount of about $7,200, which is sort of a subsidy to the amount that you're saving in this program. So a Canadian can go ahead and save up to $2,500 annually, and the government will kick in 20% of that. Okay? So I can save for the education of my kids in this registered account. To this government's benefit, they've added additional grants for those from lower and middle income children, so middle and income families. An additional 10 or 20% is kicked in the government grant for registered education savings plans. So this is all very good, but you have to participate in that plan. Okay? And so the problem here is if you don't set up a plan, you don't get that government subsidy for your education, for your human capital. So we've moved now to also promoting something called the Canada Learning Bond. And so this is my program that I want you to ask to give another purpose. The Canada Learning Bond is for all children born since 2004 or later from low-income families. Okay? And the government will contribute, without that family having to contribute anything, $500 on birth and $100 for each year up to 15 or so. Yeah, up to 15. So the government has made a contribution of about $2,000 unconditionally to these low-income families. This is a good thing, all right? The problem here is twofold. Is there any flexibility in this program to be used for something other than education? Right? So what if the child ends up dropping out of school or doesn't pursue post-secondary education? All right? Why can't this program be offered the same sort of flexibility being used for other sources of capital, like housing, or like rolled into an RSP later? So, and you could beef up this program and give it more flexibility. The problem, of course, with this program is also the take-up rate. So you do have to go to a financial institution and you do have to get a registered education savings plan open before the government will give you free money. There is money on the table. People are leaving money on the table. All right? And so again, Budget 2018 introduced innovative ways to try to promote that. So for example, I think the federal government is working jointly with Ontario so that when a child is born, new parents receive a package, and part of that package gives them information to encourage them to go to a financial institution and open an account or get more information from them. Seems to me that that is very laudable, but that is still going to be a hurdle. We need some way of making this automatic and get over that hurdle. But that's my policy proposal one. Take the candid learning bond and make it more flexible and easy to take. My second proposal is to enhance in-work income support. Right? And so John Stapleton has made this point in other forms as well. Frankly, there aren't going to be a lot of great jobs out there for a lot of people. And we want them to continue to be engaged in the labor market, and we have to somehow impact the wages that they get. The recent innovations to what was called the WIPBE, the Canada Workers Benefit, I think are an amazing step in the right direction. So I've given you in this picture the profile of what the Canada Workers Benefit looks like. After $3,000, every dollar you make gives you a boost to your earnings. I don't have my glasses on. I think that's 25 cents for every dollar earned. Is that what it is? Yeah. All right. And so that kink there encourages participation in the labor market. It keeps people from dropping out. The other thing it did is it reduced the tax back rate as the program phases out. This is a great program. Move it forward. All right. I would think, though, that you should integrate this. Think about integrating it with the EI system. So in the EI system, we've also innovated and introduced or settled on the working while in claim provisions. That's a type of Canada Workers Benefit built right into the EI system. Will these people at the low end be able to graduate into the EI system? As for the EI system, if the way the working while on claim provision works is that individuals are allowed to keep 50 cents of every dollar they, 50 cents of every of the EI benefits for every dollar that they earn, up to a certain maximum that tiers of it. The problem here with EI, what I would like to see is that working while on claim provision become a type of overall Canada Workers Benefit. The problem is who gets in. We have this archaic legacy of a variable entrance requirement that's supposed to reflect sort of aggregate labor demand, but it's defined for very narrow EI regions across the country. And there are tremendous horizontal inequities introduced because of that provision. Particularly low-wage workers in Ontario suffer as a result of that compared to others. So why not eliminate the variable entrance requirement, make more people eligible for EI, and beef up the sort of working while on claim benefit? And you've got a nice, basic in-income support program. Finally, I want to suggest that we should offer wage insurance. I've heard a former UBC economics professor speak at this conference, Craig Riddell, making the same proposal. We have capital, we generate an income from that capital, now we want that income to be insured. All right? What we should be insuring is not unemployment, we should be insuring wages. Okay? And so Craig Riddell has said that our unemployment insurance program does a good job of insuring risks like bicycles. But what people need is an asset like their homes to be insured. Okay? And so I've drawn this, taken this chart from a nice Stats Can paper by Reddy Morissette and his co-author, which shows the fact that workers with high seniority who've been in the same job or in a steady job for a long period of time, they have a type of capital. It's called firm-specific human capital. And when they are permanently laid off, that capital depreciates, and their wages never recover. Okay? That should be insured. Right? Interestingly enough, we do have a type of wage insurance already in the EI system. It's tucked into Part 2 of the benefits. not in the insurance part of the system, but in the active part of the system. So the targeted earnings supplement in its design is meant to encourage workers to get a job, get any job, and your wage will be topped up. It's like a wage insurance. But as you know, the provinces have the authority to spend the monies through labor market agreements as they wish. A lot of that money goes to other envelopes in the LMDA agreements, particularly like wage subsidies, some job counseling and training. And no province has legitimately picked up the targeted earnings. So change the objective of that program. It is not meant to encourage engagement with work. It's meant to be insurance for the loss you suffered. And move targeted earnings supplement into part one, where it becomes a legitimate part of the regular benefits with its own eligibility requirement. So those are my three proposals that I put forward to enhance the capital, the income, and the security of individuals in the lower part of the income distribution. Thank you.